My name is Evelyn Shaw. I'm 34. After averaging 90-hour weeks to deliver a record-breaking quarter, $285 million in revenue, the highest in our company's 12-year history, my director slid a glossy little card across my desk like he was handing me the keys to a new car. It was a $7 cafe voucher. Not even for a decent place. Just one of those generic partner coupons stuffed into welcome packets at corporate conferences. Across the front, in thick blue marker, he'd written, "Great things come to those who hustle," with an exclamation point that felt like salt in a wound. I stared at it for exactly 4 seconds, long enough for the absurdity to crystallize. Long enough to remember the night I slept on the couch in the women's restroom because we were finalizing a merger across 4 time zones. Long enough to see the exhausted faces of my team on yet another Sunday morning video call. Then I smiled, wide and genuine, not because I appreciated the gesture, but because in that moment, he handed me everything I needed. "You're absolutely right," I said, holding the voucher up between 2 fingers like it was fine art. "Great things really do come to those who hustle." He relaxed completely, missing the edge in my voice. "I knew you'd understand," he said. "It's not always about the paycheck, Evelyn. It's about being part of something bigger." "Oh, trust me," I replied. "I'm feeling very connected to something bigger right now." He laughed, tapped my desk twice, and walked out, already mentally checking off his team morale task for the week. As soon as the door clicked shut, I opened my laptop and pulled up the Q3 revenue report, the one I'd spent 21 consecutive days building, stress testing, and perfecting until it told exactly the story the executive team wanted. $285 million in booked revenue, 26% above target, record margins, record retention, record upsells, all wrapped in sleek slides that made our CEO sound like a visionary on the earnings call. Then I turned on the office scanner, placed the voucher face down, and hit scan. The machine hummed, beeped once, and produced a perfect digital copy of my $7 "Thank you for sacrificing your health for corporate profits" certificate. I dragged it next to the top-line revenue slide. Left, $285 million. Right, $7. Subject line came easy. Q3 results and transition notice. Great things and those who hustle. I typed my resignation in 6 clean, unemotional paragraphs. No drama, no accusations, just clarity. Above the attachment, I added one line. "Thank you for the opportunity to contribute to a historic quarter." The attached visual best captures how this experience has shaped my understanding of organizational values. Recipients: CEO, CFO, COO, VP of Operations, VP of HR, and of course, Daniel Mercer, my director, copied for full visibility. I hovered over send for 2 seconds, not out of doubt, but to remember how this moment felt. The clarity, the control, the certainty that I was done being valued at $7 after delivering $285 million. Then I clicked. The email flew out at 4:17 p.m. By 4:19, my phone started vibrating. Unknown extensions, then another, then Daniel's number. I let them all go to voicemail. At 4:28, I shut down my laptop, cleared my drawers. Family photos, emergency cardigan, blue light glasses bought after midnight spreadsheets wrecked my vision, and dropped my badge on the keyboard. I walked out. Halfway across the parking lot, the late October wind slicing through my thin blazer, I heard it. "Evelyn!" His voice sharp, panicked, cutting through idling engines and distant traffic. I didn't turn at first. He shouted again, closer now. I could hear dress shoes slapping pavement. I stopped beside my car, watched my breath fog in the cold air, and waited for Daniel Mercer. The man who just valued my 90-hour weeks at $7 and a motivational slogan, to realize exactly how expensive that little mistake was about to become. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up. How did I become the woman calculating 9-figure revenue with bloodshot eyes and a caffeinated heartbeat? Why did a $7 voucher break me? And how did one email end up costing Daniel far more than he ever imagined? If you've ever been handed cheap recognition instead of the raise, respect, or basic decency you deserved, hit subscribe. Stories like this aren't rare. They're just usually buried under NDAs and polite exits. Before Vanguard Solutions Group, I worked in healthcare compliance. A stable, predictable, soul-crushing grind. Invoice after invoice. Compliance check after compliance check. 4 years of learning the fundamentals, closing books flawlessly, building forecasts that held up under scrutiny. But I wanted more than documentation. I wanted influence. So when Vanguard posted a role for a financial analyst, I applied immediately. Day 1, I knew I wasn't in Kansas anymore. The lobby looked like a design magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows, living green walls, LED screens looping client success stories. People wore business casual that cost more than my rent, clutching espresso and talking in clipped tones about stakeholder alignment. My desk sat in a sprawling, open-plan 6th-floor workspace. No privacy, just rows of desks and the constant white noise of overlapping conversations. My first director, Angela Ramsey, was brilliant. Former Big Four, honest, protective. "We don't have enough staff," she told me bluntly. "Our job is to keep leadership anchored to reality without getting fired." For 5 years, it was intense but fair. We worked hard, stayed late when needed. But Angela pushed back on impossible timelines and ensured bonuses reflected real contribution. Then she left. A week later, they announced her replacement, Daniel Mercer. 31, MBA from a mid-tier program. 18 months at a startup that folded quietly. On his first day, he stood in a glass-walled conference room in a navy suit that looked influencer-curated, preaching operational excellence and proactive efficiency. He never asked how long reports actually took. He never questioned capacity. After the meeting, he pulled me aside. "Angela said you're the backbone of this operation. I'm counting on you." Translation: I'll pile unsustainable work on you and call it growth. At first, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I walked him through models, explained revenue recognition nuances, flagged risky deals. He listened, took notes, asked smart questions, then came the changes. "We'll publish a Monday morning executive dashboard," he announced. "Just a quick snapshot." "Where's the data coming from?" I asked. "Existing models," he said. "Shouldn't be heavy." Those models barely closed monthly, no automation. Someone would have to manually reconcile every metric. He waved it off. "We'll work out the process, critical for leadership visibility." Those 4 words cost me 14 hours every week. Within months, our team of 7 shrank to 6. No backfill. "Stay lean," Daniel said. "Excellent for your growth." Translation: do 1.3 jobs indefinitely. First quarter under him, 62-hour weeks. Third quarter, 73. By Q3 of this year, 90-hour weeks for 3 straight months. You don't notice the shift at first. You stay late, just tonight. Come in early, just this once. Then suddenly, you can't remember the last home-cooked meal. Friends stop inviting you. Your body feels like it's recovering from an illness that never arrives. During that $285 million quarter, I woke at 5:45 a.m., logged in by 6:30, worked until 8:45 p.m. Later on deadline nights, weekends, Saturday for catching up, Sunday for panicking about Monday. One afternoon, my mom called 4 times in a row. I saw the calls, picked up the phone, then an urgent pricing analysis request came in. I told myself I'd call her after. I didn't. Not for 3 days. Multiply that by weeks, months, a whole quarter. That revenue didn't materialize through magic. It came from late nights, skipped meals, abandoned lives, and a finance team sacrificing everything so executives could talk about operational excellence on earnings calls. The work still mattered to me. I cared about accuracy, integrity, quality. That's what made it dangerous. You can only exploit people who care for so long before something breaks. For me, the first crack was physical. 2:18 a.m. on a Thursday. I woke with my heart pounding like I'd sprinted 6 flights. Cold sweat, trembling hands. For 45 seconds, I thought I was having a cardiac event. I'm 34, I thought. This is absurd. I sat in the dark, counting heartbeats, slowing my breath. When it passed, I did something profoundly stupid. I opened my laptop and went back to work. The CFO wanted an extra scenario modeled by morning. That night should have been my wake-up call. It wasn't. The real one came weeks later, and it looked like a $7 coupon with a blue marker slogan. We hit $285 million through brute force. Sales pulling contracts with aggressive discounts, customer success pushing renewals, ops agreeing to impossible timelines, and finance making it all look seamless. In the final week, I slept 16 hours total, across 7 days. I remember sitting at 1:12 a.m., staring at a spreadsheet cell that wouldn't reconcile, thinking, if I disappeared right now, would anyone notice before Monday? We closed successfully. The CEO sent a company-wide email full of exclamation points and historic achievement emojis. At the bottom, special thanks to every team member who worked tirelessly. No names, no specifics. Just blanket gratitude that recognized no one. Next morning, cupcakes in the break room, a Q3 Champions banner, a 4-minute speech about momentum. The COO said, couldn't have done it without finance, and vaguely gestured our way. Then people grabbed sugar, snapped photos, and returned to their desks. No bonuses, no promotions, just frosting and a banner. At 3:12 p.m., Daniel called me in. On his desk, a stack of glossy vouchers. I wanted to personally recognize your contribution, he said, uncapping a blue marker right in front of me. He wrote, "Great things come to those who hustle," and slid it over. $7 toward any purchase at Cafe Collective Partners. Not enough for lunch downtown. Maybe a sandwich without a drink. I looked up. He was smiling. Genuinely. Not mocking. Just stunningly, devastatingly oblivious. In his mind, this was thoughtful. "Thank you," I said, and I meant it. Not for the voucher, but for the clarity. "You're absolutely right," I said, letting a slow smile spread. "Great things really do come to those who hustle." He exhaled in relief. "I knew you'd get it. You have such a fantastic attitude, Evelyn. That's why you'll keep succeeding here." He had no idea how far I was about to go, or how fast. Back at my desk, I opened the Q3 report, looked at $285 million, then at $7. For the first time in months, I laughed, a full, incredulous laugh that made Natalie glance over. "You okay?" She mouthed. "I'm perfect," I mouthed back. Because something fundamental had shifted. The part of me clinging to the belief that hard work would eventually be rewarded finally let go. I scanned the voucher. Dragged it beside the revenue slide. Labeled it Q3 Value Exchange, Organizational Achievement versus Individual Recognition. Saved it as Q3 Results and Personal Transition, E. Shaw. Opened a new email. To CEO, CFO, COO, VP Ops, VP HR. CC, Daniel Mercer. Subject, Q3 Results and Transition. Notice, great things and those who hustle. Body. Dear leadership team, attached are 2 images summarizing my Q3 experience. Left, our record-breaking $285 quarter. Right, the tangible appreciation I received for averaging 90-hour weeks to help deliver it. This isn't sent in anger. but in clarity. Effective 2 weeks from today, I resign as Senior Financial Operations Analyst. I'll ensure smooth handover. But this quarter made one truth undeniable: how this organization values effort, sacrifice, and expertise is fundamentally misaligned with how I intend to live the next decade of my professional life. Thank you for 8 years of opportunity. I hope these images are received as an honest reflection of a culture that can and should do better. I attached the slide, hovered, clicked send at 4:17 p.m. Reactions were immediate. Natalie messaged, "Olivia, what did you just do?" Paul in accounting, "Did you really send that to execs?" Sales ops, absolute legend. Daniel called. Again. I silenced my phone, grabbed my bag, dropped my badge, and walked out. People watched, shocked, impressed, like they'd just seen the final scene of a movie they hadn't realized they were in. I didn't say goodbye. Not because I didn't care, but because if I stopped, someone would try to convince me to stay. "Let's talk. We'll adjust compensation." They'd had their chance. They gave me cupcakes and a coupon. They'd made their valuation clear. Now I was making mine. I stepped into the elevator, leaned against the wall. Exhaled, deeply, completely. The lobby felt different. Same polished floors, same screens. But for the first time in 8 years, I wasn't rushing through while mentally calculating deadlines. I was leaving permanently. As I crossed the parking lot, sun sinking behind office towers, I hit unlock. Heard the chirp. Reached for the handle, then heard it. "Evelyn!" Daniel half ran, half stumbled between cars. Suit jacket askew, hair messy. Less polished director. More man whose reality just collided with consequences. "Wait! We need to talk!" I leaned against my car, crossed my arms, waited. He reached me breathless. "Why would you send that? Do you know what you just did?" "I sent an accurate summary," I said calmly. "You embarrassed me in front of leadership." "Depends who's reading it," I said. "To me, it looks accurate." "That's not fair. The voucher was symbolic. Budget constraints. We can't hand out bonuses every quarter." "Daniel, I didn't ask for a bonus." "Then what do you want?" I thought of 2:18 a.m. heartbeats, missed calls, hollow praise, cupcakes, $7. I wanted leadership that noticed 90-hour weeks before a record quarter forced them to pretend, to care. I wanted a director who recognized that above and beyond means systematic burnout. I wanted someone in your position to push back when executives treated humans like adjustable expense lines. He folded his arms. "You think I don't push back? Targets come from above. I deliver with the headcount I'm given." And your solution was a $7 voucher with an inspirational quote. It was a gesture. It was a message. The problem isn't the amount. It's that the company believes people should be grateful for crumbs while executives celebrate record profits. He flinched. "I talked to HR. We can offer a title change, senior manager, and a 12% raise." "I'm not negotiating." "What?" "I'm leaving. You can't just walk away from 8 years. I have 8 years of references and an email where the CFO praised my models. My references will be fine." "You won't find another company like Vanguard." "That's exactly the point." He searched for leverage. "You're making a serious mistake." "Maybe. But it's mine to make. And after this year, I'd rather risk being underemployed than continue being systematically undervalued." "You think this is about value? This is business. Numbers, margins, positioning." "That's the problem. You forgot numbers are attached to human beings with finite energy and lives outside quarterly targets." His phone buzzed. He glanced down. "CFO notification. We need to discuss Evelyn's email immediately." He looked up. "At least come back inside. They're requesting a meeting." "No? Be reasonable?" This is me being reasonable for the first time in a long time. Wind cut between cars. He was still negotiating. I was done. You'll regret this, he said finally. Maybe, I said. But I promise you, you'll regret that voucher long before I regret this decision. He had no reply. I got in my car. In the rear view, he stood, alone, phone buzzing, watching someone who was no longer his problem. Leaving didn't feel real at first. That first night, I slept 9 hours, no 2 a.m. panic. Next morning, I woke at 8:37 to sunlight and silence, made coffee, ate at my kitchen table, called my mom. Are you alive? She asked. Very much, I said. We talked 53 minutes about work, the email, the voucher. When I finished, she was quiet. Then, I'm proud of you. I've watched you disappear into that job for 2 years. I was starting to think you'd forgotten you're allowed to have a life. That call reminded me my identity was bigger than revenue targets. Later, personal emails poured in, even from 2 execs. The CFO wrote, Your email was illuminating. I didn't see that voucher beforehand. Your contributions were genuinely valued at levels higher than your direct management. HR's message was corporate speak, but ended with, We'll conduct a comprehensive review of recognition and workload practices as a direct result of your perspective. Would they follow through? Maybe. Either way, not my burden anymore. For my notice period, I documented everything, not for Daniel, but for Natalie, Paul, the junior analyst, who thought this chaos was normal. Daniel avoided me 3 days. On Thursday, he asked me into his office. HR will add 3 weeks severance, transition assistance. I'm not staying. It's about optics. People are talking. Good, they should be. You've put me in a difficult position. Maybe they should ask why your team averages 75-hour weeks and why you thought a $7 voucher was appropriate recognition. He flinched. It was just a symbol. Exactly, symbols matter. They communicate what you actually value. He paused. HR asked if you'd retract the comparison image. They believe it's inflammatory. Let me be clear. The problem isn't that it's true, it's that everyone can see it. He didn't answer. You realize this might close doors, he said quietly. If it closes doors at companies like yours, it's saving me time. He looked at me. You used to be so collaborative. What changed? 90-hour weeks changed me, and one very clear symbol of what those weeks were worth. My last day was anticlimactic. No farewell party. A few goodbyes. More than one whispered, Thank you for sending that email. Someone needed to say it out loud. At 2:45 p.m., Daniel emailed the team. Today is Evelyn's last day. Please thank her for her service. No mention of the record quarter. No mention of the systems I built. At 4 p.m., I packed my box, took one last look at the 6th floor. The burnout behind dual monitors, the motivational posters, the performance metrics on wall screens, and walked out into the late afternoon light. Into the life I was choosing, not drifting into. I interviewed with 4 companies, a fintech startup promising move fast and break things. Translation, another Vanguard. A PE-backed firm offering substantial upside for 85-hour weeks, hard pass. A stable manufacturer, interesting, but not right. Then, a mid-sized healthcare tech firm known for work-life balance. In the final interview, I told the truth. I burned out. Worked 90-hour weeks. Wasn't sustainable. Their CFO nodded. I did that in my 30s. Former colleagues are on 3rd marriages, dealing with health issues at 47. I decided not to build that environment here. What's your philosophy? I asked. Work intelligently when it matters. But if I'm compensating you for 40 hours and consistently getting 65, I consider that a failure of my leadership, not a badge of dedication. He offered me the role a week later. Senior manager of FP&A, modestly higher salary, explicit boundaries on work hours. 9 months in, we still have intense periods, but 53-hour weeks are exceptions, not baselines, and no one's ever handed me a discount coupon and called it recognition. Through Natalie, I hear updates. Remember the Monday dashboard? Now it's a daily leadership pulse report. They've hired 4 new analysts in 9 months. None lasted over 7. One called it organizationally unsustainable in their exit interview. Did anything change after my email? I asked. They stopped giving vouchers, she said, smiling. Now it's branded water bottles and motivational calendars. HR did conduct a culture survey, results quite damaging. CFO mentioned it in a town hall. Hired external consultants for a full assessment. Do you think anything will genuinely change? I asked. She shrugged. Maybe not immediately, but at least now they can't pretend they don't know. Before your email, they had plausible deniability. You took that away. Here's what I learned and what you need to hear clearly. If your body sends distress signals, listen. Heart pounding at 2 a.m. isn't just stress. It's your system warning you you're beyond sustainable limits. Recognition without genuine respect is marketing. Cupcakes, vouchers, slogans, they paper over deeper issues. Real respect shows up in workload management, compensation, boundaries, honest communication. You teach organizations how to value your time by what you accept. Staying silent, accepting crumbs, treating exploitation as paying dues. You reinforce the system draining you. You're not obligated to stay anywhere you're punished for caring. Taking pride in excellent work is admirable. Allowing that pride to be weaponized against you is not. The $7 voucher didn't make me resign. It revealed a truth I should have acted on sooner. It took 90-hour weeks and a cheap piece of plastic to make it impossible to lie to myself about my worth. The day I scanned that voucher next to the revenue report, I stopped believing overwork equals loyalty and exhaustion equals commitment. I started writing a different narrative, one with 8 hours of sleep, dinners uninterrupted by urgent messages, weekends that function as recovery time, environments that respect you as a whole human, not just a resource to extract until depleted. If you're watching this and thinking of your own version of that voucher, the tiny, insulting gesture that made your stomach turn, pay attention. That's your moment of clarity. You don't need to send a dramatic email or orchestrate a parking lot confrontation, but you also don't have to stay where your 90 hours are valued at $7 and a slogan. You get one life, one finite amount of energy, time, health. Spend it somewhere that understands that truth. Months after I left, I got a message from a woman named Claire in Vanguard Operations. I saw your email. I've averaged 72-hour weeks. Today, I submitted my resignation. Thank you for showing me it was possible to leave. Thank you for making it clear we're allowed to expect better. I saved that message because speaking truth clearly, even when it's uncomfortable, gives others permission to see their situations clearly. It gives them language for feelings they couldn't articulate. It shows them the exit door exists, and walking through it is valid. I don't know what happened to Daniel. I don't care. I hope he learned that handing out $7 vouchers while extracting 90-hour weeks isn't leadership, it's exploitation with a motivational slogan. But whether he did isn't my responsibility. What I know is this: I'm worth more than $285 million divided by 90-hour weeks divided by a $7 voucher. Excellent work doesn't require martyrdom. Choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply show people exactly what's happening. No editorializing. Just facts side by side, and space for people to draw their own conclusions. I put $285 million next to $7. I put 90-hour weeks next to a slogan. I put organizational achievement next to individual recognition. Executives saw it. Daniel saw it. My teammates saw it. And some of them are still there, weighing their options. Some have left. Some are building exit strategies. Wherever they are, they know one thing now. They're not alone. They're not crazy. And they're not obligated to accept that a $7 voucher is adequate appreciation for sacrificing their health, relationships, and lives. That email wasn't about revenge. It was about clarity, about making visible what had been quietly accepted as normal, about refusing to pretend everything was fine when it absolutely wasn't. If that makes me difficult in some eyes, I'm at peace with that, because I'd rather be seen as difficult while living sustainably than dedicated while slowly destroying myself for an organization that valued my year of 90-hour weeks at $7. If you're working unsustainable hours, sacrificing your health, being told cupcakes are adequate recognition for extraordinary effort, I want you to hear this clearly. You deserve better. You're worth more, and you're allowed to leave. You don't need permission. You don't need to wait until you're burned out or having panic attacks at 2 a.m. You're allowed to recognize the exchange is unfair and make a different choice. Will it be scary? Probably. Uncertain? Definitely. Will people say you're making a mistake? Almost certainly. But I promise you this, 5 years from now, you won't regret choosing yourself. You'll only regret the time you spent accepting less than you deserved. That $7 voucher was the best gift Daniel ever gave me, not because it was valuable, but because it was so perfectly, crystalline clear in what it represented. It removed all ambiguity, made the truth impossible to ignore. $285 million in revenue, 90-hour weeks for 3 months, $7 and a slogan. That's the equation. That's the exchange rate. That's what my health, time, and expertise were worth to them. And the moment I saw it clearly, the decision became simple. I scanned the voucher, attached it to the revenue report, wrote 6 paragraphs, clicked send, walked out. Best decision I ever made. If you've stayed with this story to the end, thank you. If it resonated, if it reminded you of your own situation, if it gave you clarity or courage, or just the knowledge you're not alone, hit subscribe. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Stories like this happen everywhere, every day. They're just usually hidden behind silence and fear. I chose to speak clearly. I chose to show the truth. And I chose myself. You can make that choice too, whenever you're ready. Thanks for listening.